Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. Oliver and Sophia have been married for 26 years in the small South Dakota town of Aberdeen. However, time does not seem to bring sweet fruits to the relationship, but instead erodes the otherwise unbreakable bond between them over the years. Oliver stood in front of the window, staring at the distant horizon. The setting sun's afterglow colored the sky a pale orange-red, like the rage burning inside him. He thought back to the past few months when Sophia had become colder and colder towards him, even sneering at him at times. What were once sweet greetings and gentle smiles are now nothing but cold silence and biting sarcasm. "What did I do wrong?" Oliver muttered, his insides filled with confusion and pain. He tried to remember bits and pieces of the past, trying to figure out what had caused their relationship to deteriorate, but it all seemed futile. Whenever Oliver tries to get closer to Sophia, trying to rekindle the spark between them, Sophia always finds any excuse to push him away. She either said she was too tired or too busy working. Gradually, Oliver feels pushed to the margins of his marriage, as if he is an unwelcome outsider. As night falls, Oliver sits in his study, flipping through their wedding album. In the photo, they are smiling brightly, and their eyes are full of vision and hope for the future. However, the reality is in stark contrast to the happy scene in the photo. Oliver couldn't help but sigh and close the album, feeling a deep sense of powerlessness. Just then, Oliver's cell phone vibrated. It was a message from his best friend Paul. "Dude, how are you? It seems like you've been preoccupied lately." Oliver hesitates for a while, but finally decides to confide in Paul about his troubles. He quickly typed a reply, "Paul, I think Sophia may be having an affair." After sending this message, Oliver felt his heart race. He'd never voiced the horrible suspicion, but lately all signs had pointed to the heartbreaking possibility. Paul quickly replied, "What? Are you sure? Any proof?" Oliver took a deep breath and began to describe his observations in detail. He tells Paul that Sophia has been going out a lot lately with her makeup on and is always well-groomed. Her cell phone has also suddenly become extra important, and she gets messages every now and then, but she quickly hides it every time Oliver approaches. Most disturbing to Oliver is that Sophia begins to go out frequently with a young man named Nathan. Nathan is almost 10 years younger than Sophia and is a sales rep for a local paper mill. Oliver had stumbled upon them a couple of times, talking animatedly in the cafe, Sophia's face beaming with a smile he hadn't seen in a long time. Paul was silent for a moment, then replied, "Oliver, I don't want to discourage you, but this does sound suspicious. Have you thought about talking to Sophia directly?" Oliver shook his head bitterly and replied, "I've tried, Paul. But every time I've tried to talk to her, she makes excuses to avoid it. Communication between us has become so difficult." Just then, Oliver heard the front door open. "Sophia's back." He quickly sent Paul one last message. "She's back, we'll talk some other time. Thanks for listening to me talk, old friend." Oliver took a deep breath and walked out of the den. He saw Sophia taking off her coat in the foyer, a hint of weariness on her face, but a peculiar glint in her eyes. "You're back," Oliver said, trying to speak in a calm tone. "How was your day?" Sophia looked up at him and replied faintly, "It's okay, just a little tired. I'm going to take a shower first." Oliver watched Sophia's back as she hurried up the stairs, and a pang of sadness welled up in his heart. When did the conversation between them become so rusty and cold? That night, Oliver lay in bed, tossing and turning. Sophia was long asleep, her breathing echoing softly in the darkness. Oliver stared at the ceiling, his thoughts racing. He thought of their 3 children, Emily, Lucas, and Olivia. Emily has graduated from college and started her own career. Lucas and Olivia are still in college. Oliver couldn't help but wonder how this would affect the children if his suspicions were true. The next morning, Oliver woke up early to go to work. He works as a manufacturing engineer for a manufacturing company and has a busy but well-paying job. Today, however, his mind was not on work at all. During his lunch break, he decided to contact Paul again. "Paul, can you check on Sophia and Nathan for me?" Oliver whispered over the phone. "I know it sounds bad, but I just can't stand the uncertainty anymore." Paul was silent for a moment, then sighed. "Okay, Oliver, I'll ask around for you. But you have to promise me that no matter what the outcome is, you'll handle it calmly, okay?" Oliver nodded gratefully, even though Paul couldn't see it. "Thank you, Paul. I will." The next few days were like years for Oliver. He tried to act as if everything was normal, but the anxiety and uneasiness grew inside him. Finally, one Friday afternoon, Paul sent him a message. "You're right, Oliver. Carol tells me that Sophia and Nathan have been having lunch together every week for at least 3 months." The news hit Oliver like a hammer, hard in the heart. Despite his premonition, the pain and sense of betrayal still took his breath away when the truth was laid out in front of him. That night, Oliver sat alone on the swing set in the backyard, staring up at the star-filled sky. He thought back to the first time he and Sophia had met, to their wedding, to the joy of the birth of their children. These wonderful memories are so bitter at the moment. "What am I going to do?" Oliver muttered, feeling more confused and alone than ever. He knew that next he would be faced with a difficult decision, one that could change all of their lives. And right now, in the silence of the night, Oliver feels as if he's standing at a crossroads in his life, not knowing where to go from here. Sunlight poured into the room through a gap in the curtains, and Sophia slowly opened her eyes. She looked at the empty spot beside her. Oliver had long since gotten up and left. The scene had become more and more common over the past few months. But today, Sophia felt a strange sense of relief. She sat up and picked up her cell phone on the nightstand. A new message flashed on the screen. "Good morning, beautiful lady. Looking forward to lunch today. Nathan." The corners of Sophia's mouth involuntarily rose as a long-lost sense of pleasure coursed through her. She replied with a quick message, then got up and started to freshen up. Standing in front of the mirror, Sophia surveyed herself carefully. Despite being 48 years old, she still looks great. However, a hint of apprehension showed in her eyes. "Am I doing the right thing?" She asked herself softly, then shook her head as if to shake off the thought. Sophia thinks back to the day she met Nathan. It was a normal weekday when Nathan arrived at the Midstate Printing Company, where she worked as a sales representative for the paper mill. They meet by chance in the pantry, and Nathan's humor and thoughtfulness immediately captivate her. It was then that Sophia realized how long it had been since she had felt noticed and appreciated. Over time, their relationship heated up. What started as an occasional lunch date became a regular weekly meeting. Nathan always listened patiently to her troubles, never rushing to give advice or trying to solve problems. This feeling of understanding and acceptance is something Sophia lost long ago in her relationship with Oliver. However, whenever Sophia thinks of Oliver, a pang of guilt wells up inside. She knows her behavior is betrayal, but can't resist the pleasurable feeling she gets when she's with Nathan. "Oliver hasn't really cared about my feelings in a long time," Sophia tries to convince herself. "All he cares about is work and that." That afternoon, Sophia arrived at the cafe she and Nathan frequented as promised. Nathan was already there waiting for her, a warm smile on his face. "You look especially beautiful today," Nathan said softly, admiration in his gaze. Sophia felt her cheeks burn slightly. "Thank you," she replied softly. "It's been so busy with work lately, it's nice to have this time." They chatted about their jobs and lives, and the time flew by. Just as they were about to leave, Nathan suddenly said, "Sophia, I have a proposition. Next weekend, could we all go to Sioux Falls for the weekend? The fall scenery there is beautiful, and we could have a nice, relaxing time." Sophia froze. She knew that to say yes to this invitation would mean that she would be crossing an insurmountable line. She was conflicted. Her reason told her she should refuse, but deep down she longed for this escape. I need to think about it," Sophia said eventually. "I need to figure out how to explain it to Oliver." Nathan nodded understandingly. "I know this is hard for you, but Sophia, you deserve to be happy. Think about it. When was the last time someone actually cared about your feelings instead of just your own needs?" Sophia was silent. Nathan's words were like a sharp blade, poking at the most vulnerable part of her heart. She remembered all the bad times she'd had with Oliver over the past few years, the moments when she'd been ignored and misunderstood. "Give me some time," Sophia said finally, "and I'll think about it." That night, Sophia came home to find Oliver sitting in the living room, expressionless, watching TV. She hesitated but spoke, "I'm back." Oliver glanced up at her and responded faintly before turning his attention back to the TV. Sophia felt a pang of loss and anger. "He won't even look at me more than once," she thought bitterly in her mind. Just then, Sophia's cell phone vibrated. She subconsciously glanced at it, and it was a message from Nathan. "Thinking about it? I'm really looking forward to a great weekend with you." Sophia took a deep breath and looked at Oliver on the couch, and then at her cell phone screen. In that moment, she made her decision. "Oliver," she spoke up, her voice shaking a little, "I'm going on a spa vacation next weekend." Oliver barely took his eyes off the TV and just said faintly, "Okay, be safe." Sophia felt a pang of heartache. Even at times like this, Oliver is reluctant to ask more questions, to show an ounce of concern. She turned to go upstairs and quickly replied to Nathan's message, "Okay, I'll go." For the next week, Sophia had mixed emotions beyond words. She was anticipating and fearing, excited and guilty at the same time. Whenever she sees Oliver, a pang of guilt wells up in her heart. But every time she talked to Nathan, the feeling of being understood and cherished would again solidify her decision. Finally, Friday came. Sophia packed her bags and said goodbye to Oliver. On the drive to Sioux Falls, her mood was as clear and cloudy as the fall weather. "Do I really want to do this?" Sophia asked herself over and over again. She thinks of the 26 years she spent with Oliver and their children. But then, immediately afterward, she remembers the estrangement she's felt from Oliver in recent years, the lonely nights and the pain of having no one to listen. When Sophia finally arrives at the hotel, it's after 9 p.m. Nathan was waiting for her in the lobby with a joyful smile on his face. "There you are," Nathan said softly, reaching for her bags. "I almost thought you'd change your mind." Sophia forced a smile. "I thought I'd change my mind too." They walked to the elevator together, and Sophia felt her heart racing. The moment the elevator doors closed, she knew that her life would never be the same again. In the hotel room, Nathan hugged Sophia tenderly. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "If you're not feeling well, we can just talk." Sophia took a deep breath and looked Nathan in the eye. In those concerned eyes, she saw what she had longed for: understanding, respect, and affection. "I'm fine," Sophia said softly. It's all new to me." Nathan smiled and cupped her face. "We can take our time and do everything at your pace." It was at that moment that Sophia felt a flood of emotions that had built up over the years. She took the initiative and kissed Nathan on the lips, closing her eyes and soaking in the moment. However, the very moment she gets close to Nathan, Oliver's face suddenly flashes through Sophia's mind. That's what they looked like when they were newlyweds, young, vibrant, with nothing but each other in their eyes. The image sent a shiver down Sophia's spine, but she quickly pushed the thought aside. "Now is not the time to think about that," Sophia said to herself in her mind. "I deserve to be happy and to be loved." As the night deepens, Sophia revels in the passion and tenderness she's been missing for so long. However, in that moment when the passion faded, as she lay in Nathan's arms, an uncanny emptiness crept in. Sophia looked out the window at the night sky. The stars seemed to question her silently. She made that choice to cross that line, but will she really find the happiness she seeks? In the darkness, Sophia shed silent tears. She didn't know if these tears were for a lost past or an unknown future. The only thing that was certain was that starting tonight, her life would change forever. And whether this change is the beginning of the road to happiness or the first step towards the abyss, only time will give the answer. Oliver stood in front of the window, staring blankly at the distant horizon. It's been 2 days since Sophia left, and the house has suddenly become so empty and silent. His heart is full of contradictions and pain, wanted to believe that Sophia has really just gone on a spa vacation. But at the same time, he can't help but suspect that she's with the young Nathan at the moment. He picked up his cell phone and checked Sophia's location again. Thanks to modern technology, their cell phones are turned on for location sharing. Oliver looked at the red dot on the map, which rested silently near a hotel in Sioux Falls. His heart sank. "I have to know the truth," Oliver muttered, determination in his eyes. He quickly gathered some essentials, hopped in his car, and headed towards Sioux Falls. The 3-hour drive seemed like the blink of an eye. It was already dark when Oliver arrived at that hotel. He parked across the street and turned off the engine. His heart was beating fast and his palms were sweaty, but he knew he had to face this truth that could change his life forever. It was then that Oliver saw the last image he ever wanted to see in his life. Sophia and a young man walk out of the front door of the hotel. They are holding hands and have happy smiles on their faces. That man must be Nathan, Oliver thought. He did look much younger and fitter than himself. Oliver felt a wave of vertigo, as if someone had stabbed him hard in the chest. He wanted to rush out and question Sophia, to teach the young man a hard lesson, but reason told him that it would only make things worse. He watched Sophia and Nathan walk toward a restaurant and then disappear behind a door. Oliver took a deep breath and started the car. He knew that his marriage had come to an end. On the way back to Aberdeen, Oliver's emotions are like the sea in a storm, sometimes angry, sometimes sad, sometimes numb. He recalls the 26 years he has spent with Sophia, the happy moments, the difficult days, and the little moments when they raised their children together. Now that will all be in the past. What am I going to tell the kids? Oliver muttered to himself, feeling a deep sense of powerlessness. Emily, Lucas, and Olivia, how would they feel about this? How would they feel about their mother? Early the next morning, Oliver contacted his old friend Tom. Tom was not only his friend, but also the local sheriff. "Tom, I need your help." Oliver's voice was husky and tired. "I want a divorce." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, then Tom's shocked voice. "What? Oliver, are you sure? What happened?" Oliver tells Tom about his findings, including following Sophia to Sioux Falls. Tom sighed deeply as he listened. "I'm sorry, man," Tom said. "What do you need me to do?" "I need you to serve the divorce papers for me," Oliver said. "I don't want to face her, at least not right now." Tom agreed to Oliver's request, but there was concern in his voice. "Oliver, have you calmed down? Are you sure you want to do this?" Oliver laughed bitterly. "Tom, I've never been more sober. This marriage is over. I'm just giving it an official ending." After hanging up the phone, Oliver felt a wave of exhaustion like no other. He knew the next few days were going to be tough, but he had no choice. He had to look out for himself, for the children. Over the next few days, Oliver began to prepare for life after the divorce. He contacted an attorney to begin the process of dividing the property. He also started looking for a new place to live because he didn't want to live in a home full of memories anymore. However, over time, the pain in Oliver's heart gradually transforms into anger. He begins to wonder why he should be the only one to suffer. Why should Sophia be able to start a new life unscathed while he has to face it all alone? It was then that an idea sprang into Oliver's mind. He wants revenge, and he wants Sophia to get a taste of what it's like to lose everything too. Oliver knows that Sophia works for a printing company and has a lot of business with him at the company. If he can use his contacts to cancel his deal with Sophia Printing. Once the idea arose, it spread like wildfire through Oliver's mind. He knew it might affect innocent people, but at the moment he was blinded by anger and revenge. Oliver begins secretly contacting the company's executives, suggesting that there is something wrong with Sophia's printing company. He skillfully maneuvered the situation by using the trust and connections he had built up over the years. Finally, in the third week after Sophia's return, Oliver's plan began to pay off. Oliver's abruptly announced the termination of all cooperation with Sophia Printing. The news was like a bomb that caused a furor in the town. When Oliver heard the news, he felt a wave of mixed emotions. On the one hand, he felt a twinge of pleasure at his success. On the other hand, he felt a twinge of guilt for his behavior. But soon the twinge of guilt is drowned out by resentment towards Sophia. "That's the price of betrayal," Oliver muttered to himself, a cold gleam in his eye. Little does Oliver know, however, that his act of vengeance will set off a chain of unforeseen consequences that will affect not only Sophia, but the entire town and even his own life. Just as Oliver is reveling in the thrill of revenge, Sophia is going through one of the toughest times of her life. When Tom delivers the divorce papers to her, Sophia feels as if the world is crumbling beneath her feet. Even though she knew she betrayed Oliver, she never thought it would come to this. "Oliver knows?" Sophia asked Tom, trembling. Tom just nodded, his eyes filled with disappointment and sympathy. Sophia dropped onto the couch, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. She thought back to the weekend she'd spent with Nathan in Sioux Falls, when she was still reeling from the novelty and the illusion of being loved. Now it's all gone to hell. Just as Sophia is trying to clear her head, she receives an urgent call from her company. Oliver suddenly canceled all cooperation, and the company was in an unprecedented crisis. Sophia suddenly realizes that it could all be Oliver's doing. She felt a wave of panic and despair. Not only is her marriage falling apart, but now her career is in jeopardy. In the following days, Sophia had to face accusations and criticism from all sides. Her coworkers looked at her in a different light, and some even outright accused her of being the culprit for the company's crisis. Nathan has also grown distant from her. When Sophia needs support the most, she finds Nathan becoming cold and evasive. She then realizes that to Nathan, she might just be a pastime in a midlife crisis. Isolated, Sophia begins to reflect on her behavior. She thought about the years she had spent with Oliver and the joys and sorrows they had experienced together. Now, nothing can be undone. Late one night, Sophia worked up the courage to call Oliver. However, there was only a cold, busy signal on the other end of the phone. Oliver won't even answer her phone. Sophia curled up on the couch, tears falling like rain. She finally understood the cost of her choices. She's lost her husband, her job, her dignity, and maybe even the respect of her children. "What have I done?" Sophia muttered, her voice filled with remorse and despair. Oliver, meanwhile, is sitting in his newly rented apartment, listening to the voice message Sophia left. His expression was cold, but there was a complex glint in his eyes. The thrill of revenge had faded, replaced by a sense of emptiness. Oliver begins to question whether his behavior is really worth it. He hurt Sophia, but he also hurt a lot of innocent people. More importantly, he realized he didn't feel good about getting revenge. "Is this what I want?" Oliver asked himself, but couldn't find an answer. It's late at night, and Oliver and Sophia are each lying in bed, but neither can sleep. Their marriage has come to an end, but it seems that this is not the end, but the beginning of a new set of problems. None of them knew what other challenges awaited them in the future, or how this storm would change their lives. The only thing that is certain is that as of today, the course of their lives has changed forever. And only time will give the answer as to whether this change is the beginning of a journey to new life or a journey to deeper pain. Fall comes especially early in Aberdeen. The maple leaves were beginning to redden, and there was a coolness in the air. This town seems to be shrouded in a cloud of sadness overnight, and this atmosphere is especially obvious in the Central States Printing Company. Sophia dragged her tired body into the company's front door and was greeted with looks of pity or contempt from her coworkers. Since Oliver canceled the partnership, the company's working hours have been forced to shrink to 32 hours a week, and anxiety and unease are written on everyone's faces. "It's all because of you," Sophia heard someone whisper behind her back. "If you hadn't betrayed Oliver, we wouldn't be in this situation." These words were like sharp edges that pierced Sophia's heart. She knew that in the eyes of her coworkers, she had not only destroyed her marriage, but she had dragged the entire company down with her. Each day, she suffered through self-blame and the accusations of others. Just then, Sophia's cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Nathan. "I'm sorry, Sophia. I think we should call it quits. I've been transferred to another city, and this may be the last time I contact you." Sophia stared at her cell phone screen and felt a wave of dizziness. She had thought Nathan would be the one she would rely on during this difficult time, but reality hit her hard. She realized then that to Nathan, she might just be a pastime, an exciting adventure. Sitting at her desk, Sophia couldn't control her emotions. Tears kept welling up, and she did her best to suppress the sobs, not wanting her co-workers to see her weakness. However, her efforts were in vain. Sophia, her boss Jack, stood in front of her desk seat, a hint of helplessness in his voice. "Can you come to my office?" Sophia fought back tears and followed Jack into his office. She knew that worse news could await her. "I'm sorry, Sophia," Jack spoke up. "You know what's going on with the company right now. We've had to make some tough decisions. Your position may have to be cut." The news came as a bolt from the blue, and Sophia felt the sky spinning. Her job, everything she'd fought for 15 years, just ended. I understand," Sophia said with difficulty, her voice trembling, "and I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused the company." Jack sighed. "It's not all your fault, Sophia. But, people in town are talking. We need to do something to salvage the company's reputation." Leaving Jack's office, Sophia feels more alone and desperate than ever. Her marriage falls apart. She loses her job, and even her only solace, Nathan, leaves her. She didn't know where else she could go. Meanwhile, Oliver is going through his own ordeal. Although he succeeds in getting back at Sophia, the joy of this victory is soon replaced by a feeling of emptiness. Every night, as he lay alone in his bed in his new apartment, that sense of loss grew stronger. However, it's his coworker Eric's change in attitude that really gets under Oliver's skin. Since canceling the deal with Sophia's printing company, Eric always looked at him with a hint of smugness in his eyes. Finally, one day, Oliver couldn't help himself. He asked Eric out to a coffee shop near the office. "Eric," Oliver looked the other man straight in the eye. "Were you involved in a retaliatory action against the Central States Printing Company?" Eric gave a meaningful smile. "Oh, Oliver, you finally caught on. Yes, I did get involved, but isn't that what you wanted?" Oliver felt a wave of nausea. "I just wanted to punish Sophia, not hurt the entire company." Eric sneered. "Don't be naive, Oliver. In the mall, there is no such thing as retaliation against one person alone. The moment you decided to retaliate, you should have thought that there would be innocence involved." Oliver was silent. He suddenly realizes that his act of revenge has not only hurt Sophia, but many innocent people as well. To make matters worse, he seems to have been used by Eric. "Why are you doing this?" Oliver asked in a low voice. Eric's eyes turned cold. "Because you were always the one who was appreciated, always the one who was reused. And now, I finally have a chance to take you down." Oliver felt a wave of dizziness. He then realized that not only had he lost his wife, but he could lose his job. And it all stems from his vindictiveness. After leaving the cafe, Oliver wanders aimlessly through the streets. His mind kept replaying everything that had happened in the past few weeks. Sophia's betrayal, his revenge, and now Eric's betrayal. He felt as if he was caught in a never-ending cycle of revenge. Just then, Oliver's cell phone rings. It's his son, Glenn. "Dad." Glenn's voice sounded a little shaky. "Janie and I broke up." The news froze Oliver. Glenn and Janie have been so in love. They've even been planning a wedding. "What happened, son?" Oliver asked with concern. Glenn was silent for a moment, then said, "We had a fight about you and Mom. Janie thinks I should forgive Mom. Says she'd like me to forgive her if she cheated on her. But I can't do it, Dad. I can't accept someone who might cheat on me." Oliver felt a deep pang of remorse. His and Sophia's problems not only affect themselves, but also the children's outlook on life and relationships. "Glenn, I'm sorry," Oliver said with difficulty. "What happened with your mom and I shouldn't have affected you guys. Maybe we were both too quick to judge." Glenn on the other end of the line whispered, "Dad, I don't know what to do. I love Janie, but I can't trust her anymore." Oliver sighed. "Son, listen to me. Love and marriage both require effort and forgiveness. The mistakes your mom and I made shouldn't be a reason for you to give up on love. Maybe you guys need to sit down and talk it out." After hanging up, Oliver felt a wave of exhaustion. He realized that his actions had not only destroyed his marriage, but also indirectly affected his son's relationship. The realization frustrated him to no end. Meanwhile, Sophia is going through a similar dilemma. Her daughter Olivia called, her voice full of disappointment and reproach. "Mom, how could you?" Olivia questioned. Do you know how much your behavior has hurt us? I can't even hold my head up in school. Sophia felt heartbroken. Olivia, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Mistake? Olivia sneered. You destroyed our family, and that's more than a mistake, Mom. I don't know if I can believe in love anymore. Sophia felt a wave of giddiness at her daughter's words. She realizes that her actions not only hurt Oliver, but also hurt the children deeply. Her impulse may affect the children's outlook on relationships for the rest of their lives. That night, neither Oliver nor Sophia could sleep. They each lay on their beds, reflecting on everything that had happened in the past few weeks. The short-lived thrill of retaliation was long gone, leaving only endless regret and emptiness. Oliver remembers Eric's betrayal and Glenn's breakup with Janie. He began to question whether he had made the right decision. Maybe he should give Sophia a chance to explain herself? Maybe revenge doesn't really heal his wounds? Sophia, for her part, remembers lost jobs, estranged children, and Nathan's departure. She finally realized the damage her actions had done to everyone. How she wished she could go back in time and make different choices. However, time cannot be turned back. They all knew that the next few days were going to be even tougher. Not only do they have to deal with the legal process of divorce, but they also have to figure out how to repair their relationship with their children and rebuild their respective lives. Most importantly, they need to learn to forgive. Forgive each other. Forgive yourself. Only then will they be able to truly move on from this storm and start a new life. But is it really that easy to forgive? When trust is completely destroyed, when the hurt is so deep, can they find the courage to rebuild? It was late at night, and the streets of Aberdeen were empty. The only thing that blew through was the fall breeze, bringing a hint of coolness. In different corners of the town, Oliver and Sophia, along with their children, worry about the uncertainty of the future. This once happy and fulfilling family is now in tatters, and the road to rebuilding seems to be a long one. Oliver stood in front of the courthouse, took a deep breath, and pushed open the heavy door. Today is the day he and Sophia officially divorced, the moment their 26-year marriage came to an end. Walking into the courtroom, Oliver sees Sophia already sitting there. She had lost a lot of weight since the last time we met, and there were noticeable dark circles under her eyes. Oliver felt a sudden pang of heartache, and even though he still couldn't forgive her for her betrayal, he couldn't help but soften a little at the sight of her so haggard. All set, the judge asked calmly, his eyes moving back and forth between Oliver and Sophia. Both men nodded, and then the divorce proceedings began. For the next hour, they calmly discussed property division, child support, and other issues. The whole thing was surprisingly calm, as if they were discussing not their own marriages but some stranger's story. When the judge finally declared them officially divorced, Oliver felt a wave of vertigo. Even though he had known this day would come, he was still in disbelief when it actually did. 26 years of marriage, and that was the end of it. Walking out of the courthouse, Oliver and Sophia stand side by side on the steps, speechless for a moment. Finally, it was Sophia who broke the silence. Oliver, she whispered, her voice quivering a little. I know this is probably pointless, but I still want to say, I'm sorry. For everything. Oliver gave her a deep look, then nodded gently. I'm sorry too, he said, for my vindictive behavior. We've both made mistakes. The two were silent for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Oliver spoke up. How are the kids? Sophia smiled bitterly. Not so good. Olivia still won't forgive me. Emily is trying to stay neutral. And Glenn, he's still upset about Janie. Oliver sighed. We really screwed everything up, didn't we? Sophia nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Yeah, we did screw up. The two men gave one last look at each other before turning and walking in opposite directions. They both knew that from today, they would each be facing a whole new life. Back in his newly rented apartment, Oliver feels a wave of loneliness he's never felt before. He looked around. There were no memories he and Sophia shared, no signs of the children growing up. Everything was so strange and cold. He picked up his cell phone, hesitated, and finally dialed Glenn's number. Dad, Glenn's voice sounded tired. "Hey, son," Oliver said softly. "Your mom and I, we're officially divorced today." There was silence on the other end of the line for a moment. Then Glenn said, "I know. Are you okay?" Oliver laughed bitterly. "Honestly, I don't know. It feels like losing a part of my life. What about you? How are you and Janie doing?" Glenn sighed. "We're still in the cooling off period. I don't know what to do, Dad. I love her, but I don't know if I can trust her again." Oliver pondered for a moment, then said, "Glenn, listen to me. Don't let my mistakes and your mother's mistakes cloud your judgment. If you really love Janie, maybe you should give each other a chance. Communication, understanding, those are all important." "But Dad," Glenn's voice trembled a little, "what if she does betray me?" Then Oliver took a deep breath. "It won't be too late for you to decide then. But for now, don't give up the happiness you already have out of fear of what might happen. That's a mistake your mom and I made, and I don't want you to repeat it." Oliver felt a wave of exhaustion as he hung up the phone. He lay back on the couch and thought back to everything that had happened in the past few months. Instead of giving him pleasure, his vengeful behavior cost him more. He lost his job. Eric managed to use the incident to push him out of the company. He lost his reputation in the town. People started to look at him differently. And most importantly, he may have lost his chance to get back together with Sophia forever. Opportunity to reconnect with Sophia. Meanwhile, Sophia picks up her cell phone, hesitates, and finally sends Olivia a message. "Honey, I know you probably don't want to talk to me right now, but I still want to tell you that your dad and I are officially divorced today. I'm so sorry for letting you down. I love you." The message went out, and Sophia held her breath waiting for a reply. A few minutes later, the phone vibrated. Olivia replied, "I know. I hope you're taking good care of yourself." It was a short sentence, but it was enough to comfort Sophia. At least her daughter was willing to respond to her messages. It's a start, and maybe someday Olivia will be able to forgive her. Sophia leaned against the window and thought back to her weekend with Nathan. How naive she was at the time to think that that short-lived passion could make up for the emptiness in her marriage. In retrospect, it was just a ridiculous fantasy. She lost everything, only to be rewarded with endless regret and pain. As night falls, Oliver and Sophia are each lying in bed, and they are both pondering the same question. If they had made a different choice, would the end be different now? Oliver wonders if he had been less focused on work and spent more time with Sophia. Maybe she wouldn't have sought an affair. If he had been able to calmly communicate with Sophia instead of choosing to retaliate, perhaps their marriage could have been saved. Sophia, for her part, wonders if she would have been brave enough to face her grievances and be honest with Oliver instead of choosing avoidance and betrayal. Maybe they wouldn't have gotten this far. If she had resisted Nathan's temptations and cherished the family she already had, maybe things would have been different. However, these what-ifs can only exist in the imagination. The reality is that they both made bad choices, and now they have to pay for those choices. The next morning, Oliver wakes up to find that he has received an email. It was a job offer from a Minneapolis-based company. It was a chance for a fresh start, away from Aberdeen and away from those painful memories. Oliver stared at the email for a long time and finally made a decision. He responded to the email and accepted the job. Perhaps by leaving this town full of memories, he would be able to start his life anew. Meanwhile, Sophia is making her own decisions. She decided to sign up for a counseling course. She realized that she needed to face her inner issues and learn how to have healthy relationships with people instead of running away or seeking excitement. Later that afternoon, Glenn called Oliver and told him that he had decided to have an honest talk with Janie. "I want to give our relationship a chance, Dad," Glenn said. "I don't want to lose her out of fear." Oliver took comfort in the fact that at least his son wasn't repeating his mistakes. "I'm proud of you, son," he said sincerely. A week later, Oliver drove out of Aberdeen and embarked on a journey to Minneapolis. As his car drove past the town's boundary marker, he saw Sophia standing on the side of the road. He slowed the car and rolled down the window. The two looked at each other and didn't say anything, just nodded lightly. In this moment, they both realized that even though their marriage had ended, their shared history and children would always bind them together. Oliver continued to drive forward, watching Sophia's figure in the rearview mirror dwindle and finally disappear. He took a deep breath and looked ahead with a determined gaze. It's an end, but it's also a new beginning. Sophia stands on the curb and watches Oliver's car disappear into the horizon. She felt a wave of mixed emotions rush over her. Sadness, regret, relief, and a glimmer of hope. She knew that there was still a long road ahead of her, but at least she had taken the first step. That night, Oliver checked into a hotel in Minneapolis. He sat on the edge of the bed, took out his cell phone, and hesitated before sending a message to Sophia. I have arrived safely in Minneapolis. I hope all is well with you. Take care of yourself. A few minutes later, he received a reply. Thanks for letting me know. I wish you all the best in your new city. I'll take good care of myself too. Oliver read the message and felt a twinge of warmth. Even though their marriage was over, at least they were able to communicate in a peaceful way. Maybe one day they can actually let go of the past and become friends. Meanwhile, in Aberdeen, Sophia is sitting in her counseling class. When the teacher asked why each person came to the class, Sophia took a deep breath and worked up the courage to say, I made a huge mistake and hurt the people I love. I came here to understand myself and learn how to build healthy relationships. And maybe one day, I'll be able to repair the ones I've hurt. Saying these words, Sophia felt a sense of relief. It was the first time she publicly admitted her mistake and the first step towards a new life. Although their marriage ends in failure, both Oliver and Sophia grow in the process. They understand that love and marriage require effort and honesty on both sides, mutual understanding and respect. While they can't start over, they can pass these lessons on to the next generation in hopes that their children will have happier, healthier emotional lives. It's still cold in Aberdeen this winter, but in the midst of the cold, new hope is sprouting. Oliver and Sophia, along with their children, are moving forward on their own paths, trying to create their own happiness. Maybe that's what life is really about. Fall down, get up, and keep going. Whatever the setbacks, don't give up hope, because every end can be a new beginning. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.